This book is called Johnny Appleseed, and it says My Story. Johnny Appleseed, My Story. And go ahead and look at the front of that book. Here you go. Just look at the cover for a second. What do you notice? You think that's his name? He's holding an apple, isn't he? That must be Johnny Appleseed. Looks like he's talking to a couple of little kids. Yeah. What did you notice? Anything else?
He doesn't have any shoes on. He doesn't light up the fire.
You know, I thought that was kind of strange that he doesn't have any shoes on because there's a fire. I was thinking it must be cold outside. He's barefoot, isn't he? Kind of looks like he's telling a story. And they're listening to the story. I think he's a good storyteller. Have you ever heard of Johnny Appleseed?
No.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Johnny Appleseed. He's a character, what we sometimes call like tall tales. He tells stories that are tall tales. It's like kind of like lying. It's like stretching the truth. You know, like when somebody says, "I caught a fish and it was this big," but it was really only this big. That's called a tall tale. And Johnny Appleseed is known for telling lots of tall tales. But it makes his stories really interesting. Let's go ahead and open it up. And we're going to skip over these pages till you get to right here where it says Johnny Appleseed, My Story. And this page here is just telling us who this was written by.
By David L. Harrison.
Yeah, Harrison. And illustrated by Mike. That is a tricky word, isn't it? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Let's just try something. How about Wojnałka? Because I see the word out. You see the word out there? Yeah, you know when we come to names, it's not real important that we pronounce them exactly right. We just try something. So let's just say it's Mike Wojnałka. That's the person that did the pictures. Now go ahead and turn the page, because this is where the story begins. And what I wanted to do before you guys start reading is I'm just going to point out some things that are a little bit tricky, okay? If you look at, on page 4, they talk about seeing this man, and they call him a lean, wiry man. Can you find where it says lean, wiry man and just point to it? Lean, wiry man. What is that? Did you find it okay? Okay, that word right there, wiry, do you see it? It kind of means like really skinny, like tall and thin. So when you come to that, just picture somebody that's tall and thin. Okay, go ahead and turn to the next page. Now this is kind of funny. If you look on the left-hand side, it says he always has a good tail to tail. It's right here. Tail to tail.
That's supposed to be always a good story.
Yeah, because remember we talked about tale being like a story, but they exaggerate it, kind of stretch the truth. Good, so when you get to that, that's what they're talking about. Now, turn it to one more page. In this story, what happens is he's walking around and he's invited to dinner with his family that we saw on the front of the page. And one word I thought was a little bit tricky on this page is down almost to the end, right here. It says like, tree. Anybody want to try that word? You know what? Look at this. Let me show you something. This sometimes helps me out. When I see tricky words, I see this word. And this word I know. Do you know what this word is?
Out.
Out, yeah. So then I think about the word I know, which is out, and it helps me with the word I don't know. This word is sprouts. Can you say sprouts? And you know what else makes that tricky? Is it may not be a word you know. Do you know what a sprout is? Well, what do you want to try?
When you shake a ball, and then when you open, shake a sword, and then when you open it,
That's, you know what, I never thought about it that way. That's one way to think about it. In this story, it says your children are growing like tree sprouts. Do you know, like, when you plant something, watch, like a few days later you see a sprout, you see something growing? Okay, that's called a sprout too. So what he's saying is your children are growing like tree sprouts. It means they're growing really fast. Okay, let's try just a few more. Turn the page. Oh no, look at here. He doesn't have any shoes on again, and he's using an axe. See it?
But his own father was using to cut
Oh, maybe he's helping him cut wood or something.
Yeah, so we can make enough fire to warm up.
Yeah, I just don't know why he's barefoot. Turn the page again. Let's see what's happening. He obviously doesn't like wearing shoes, does he?
He's barefooted.
Is almost everybody barefoot?
Everybody's barefooted in this
That's
story.
funny. You know, even though the title of the story was called Johnny Appleseed, his real name wasn't Appleseed. He has a different real name, and they tell us on this page his real name. If you look up here, you see the his name John Chapman. Yeah, Chapman. And so, yeah, but they called him Johnny Appleseed because he likes to plant apples.
And he likes to eat them.
I'll bet he does like to eat them because they're healthy. And now what's going to happen in the story when you get to this page here, he's going to start telling a story. Look on the next page. And this is where he starts telling the story about what happens to him when he's in the woods. So you guys are going to keep reading and keep going. When you get to this page, there's one little tricky word, because we don't usually see this here in Florida. Look here in the middle. It starts with an H. That's called a hatchet. He says, I packed up my gun and my hatchet. Let's take a look at him right here. What do you think a hatchet might be?
It's the thing that's in his foot that has a metal to cut trees.
Good for you. Have you ever seen a hatchet?
No.
Yeah, just in stories maybe?
My dad has them in his garage.
Oh, okay. So does he use it to cut wood?
Sometimes.
Well, that's what Johnny's going to do. He's going to take his hatchet with him. And he says he left. There's a really long word. This is a state.